Alright, well hello, my name is Augustine Hamner, and this summer I worked with ARUC and I will be presenting about my summer internship experience. A little bit about myself: I was born and raised here in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm a Nupiaq, Yupik, and White, and I just recently graduated from the University of Alaska Anchorage with my Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. During my time at UAA, I was a part of the ANTHC program, as well as ACES and SWE. In my free time, I like to play hockey, hang out with my dog, and just be outdoors as much as possible during the summer. So now that I introduced myself a little bit, I'll go about my summer reflection and the projects and where I traveled to, and I will save acknowledgements and questions for the end. And this is a picture of Scammon Bay from on top of the water storage tank. One of the first projects I got to work on was for the boiler panels for St. Michael, and what they will be used for is to connect with the pump and the boiler to run a pre-purge and post-purge cycle. And this will help to mitigate the amount of soot that accumulates in the boilers and ultimately extending the lifetime of the boilers. And so I got to learn a little bit about wiring and controls, and also got to apply a little bit of my learnings from physics. So I learned about this 8-pin relay up on the top. It has a coil inside of it, and when current flows through it, it creates an electromagnetic field. And when that is produced, it attracts the switches in this pin relay, and then it will connect and create a closed circuit, and this will tell the pumps to run on and off when it needs to during the cycle. And so it's just really interesting to apply my physics learning, but also we got to test them out in the office, so they do work. We are able to program them, so the Honeywell will be able to tell the pumps when to turn off and on when it needs to, and they'll be sent out for St. Michael. Another project I got to work on was heat exchanger replacement parts for Ambler. And so the picture on the left is an example of one of the heat exchangers that needs to have their equipment replaced. And so my job was to figure out what is needed to replace the temperature sensors, pressure sensors, and also the hose bibs. So this includes all the necessary piping to replumb it into the system. So this is an example of a temperature sensor. So I went and drew out the necessary materials. And once I figured out what was needed for the materials, like the thermal well, which will help the temperature sensor to gain an accurate reading of the fluid flowing through the pipes, and also the necessary fittings that it's able to be replumbed. I then drafted an estimated cost form, which will then be used to send to the purchasing team, which then they'll purchase and send it out to Ambler. One of my first trips was to Tooksik Bay, and we had a couple things that we needed to do there. The first picture on the left is a water monitoring equipment that was installed by TUS for a water monitoring survey done by UAA. And what we were there to do was to take out this equipment as well as the 5 sensors that were located in the washer, the 2 sinks, the toilet, and the shower. And so we used shark bite removal tools and also PEX to replumb it with expansion tools and crimp rings. We did have a little bit of trouble getting the expansion rings to work, so then we had to switch over to the crimp rings. But it was a really good opportunity to apply what I learned in the office and got to practice on, real world situations in the home. The second picture is one of the soldering works that I did in the water plant. And so to solder, you sand off the copper to make sure that it's good, ream the pipe so that it helps decrease the amount of turbulent flow if there's an extra layer of copper in there, of a ring of copper. And then you apply the flux, and the important part about flux is when you heat it up, it'll help to draw the solder in to create a good seal so that it doesn't leak. And so after this picture was taken a little bit before, I may or may have not set off the fire alarm twice. So then we moved outside and I soldered the second piece, and then we put it back in the water plant. And then this picture on the right is just a picture of the person on the left is Jeffrey, the person on the right is Richard, and then Andy and an AVEC worker are behind the pole. And we are trying to help the AVEC worker replace a fuse in one of the lines using a big fiberglass pole that kind of you have to push up. And I just thought it was a really good picture of all of us working together. We were all trying to yell at Andy to the left, to the right, because you had to like click it in and then flip it up. So I thought it was a great picture. The second project I was able to work on and travel to was to Upper Calskag. And the main goal of this project was to create a shed that will be used to house a pump that will be used for their sewage lagoon. And originally it was a 2-cell lagoon, but at this time it was just 1 cell, like a one big lagoon. So we are gonna use that to pump it out to make it a 2-cell lagoon again. So this picture on the top left is what we kind of started with. This was after we kind of scoped out an area that would be good enough to build the shed for, and after we kind of bushwhacked it a little bit. And then this picture on the bottom left is the foundation that we made. We wanted to make sure everything was level so that we were able to build it and make sure that it lasts a long time. This picture on the top middle is 3/0 wire, and this is used to provide electricity to the pump, and we had to unspool this wire. It was about 1,000 pounds, so we had to take it from the city office where it was housed in a yard and put it up on the truck and then bring it back to where we were working and take it down safely without hurting anyone. So that was fun. And Andy came up with this idea to kind of lever it up so that we're able to unspool it. And so when we first tried it, we had to pull it like kind of like tug of war, and it was pretty heavy all the way down to the lift station. But then after that, we had a truck again, so then we were able to pull it with the truck, and that went a lot faster, but we got our days working with that. This second middle picture is me working the chop saw. And we were working with the water plant operator. His name's Peter, and he was really experienced in carpentry, and so he was able to help us. He pulled out measurements. He knew what to measure and how to do it just from the top of his head. So it was really interesting and also amazing that he remembered it all and was just able to do that. And so we worked well with him, and he helped us throughout the whole way. The picture on the right is our almost finished shed. We were just at the roofing point of that stage. You can see the pump in there. It's the bright orange thing. We had to use heavy machinery to work it in, and it was just good to see all the team working skills that we did throughout this. And then I had to include a little picture of this puppy. This puppy was the neighbors, and they would come and greet us every time we left and came back. It was the cutest thing. So I just had to include it. So in recap, I was able to travel to Tuxik Bay and Calskag with the ARUC team, but I also had the opportunity to travel with different departments to get an experience of how they work in the field. So I was able to go to Telgiak with the project management group, where we were able to assess needs for funding, and so it was really interesting to see that side of things and also get to explore the water plant as well as the homes that they were looking at. And then I also got to go to Scammon Bay, where we did a water sanitation survey. So we were able to assess the water storage tank and then also the water plant. So it was really interesting to see different sides of things. I also learned a lot within ARUC as well. I learned a lot about teamwork. They're always, working with each other, trying to figure out situations, always talking with each other, checking in. But also the one thing that impacted on me was the relationships with the water plant operators that everyone has. It's really nice to see that they can just call each other when they have a problem, and they're not, hesitant about calling them. They're always, contacting with each other. So it's like if there's ever a problem, they're not scared to reach out, or, vice versa. And also one thing that really stuck with me was ANTHC and their mission to provide adequate water and sanitation services here in the rural communities. In Anchorage, you kind of think, oh, it's just water and the bathrooms everywhere. So it's just really nice to see that, there are challenges out in the rural communities, but it's just humbling and everything with that. So this internship wouldn't be possible without the help from ANTHC. They helped me throughout school and everything and getting me these awesome internships. But I also would like to thank Andrea for helping set up everything. She was really great throughout, trying to constant communication without, and so it was just a great transition into it. And I'd also like to thank the ARUC team. They helped out a lot whenever I had questions or, I wasn't quite sure what to do, because I was just coming in completely new into this. But it was really interesting that, and then also got to learn about them and what they did before and how they worked into ARUC and what they do now. And then I'd also like to thank the fellow ANTHC interns for all our practice presentation practices, lunch meetings, and everything. wouldn't be possible without them. Are there any questions?
And feel free to pop in
online.
Awesome, great presentation.
All right. Thank you.